Remember this past week when I was talking about the college football playoff rankings and how it didn't really matter and everything is going to sort itself out by the end of the season? Well, when we have the new rankings this week, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be sorted out. This past weekend was arguably the craziest weekend of the entire college football season. There were a ton of upsets, and there could have been a handful more. Not only is the top 25 going to look entirely different come Tuesday, the top 10 is going to look very, very different as well. Before we get to today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel, so make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. Yeah, I don't even know where to begin with this insane weekend of college football that we got. I guess we can start with Georgia, as they were the number 3 team in the country, and they fell on the road to Ole Miss 28-10. Now, this is quite the upset for me because personally, I had Georgia as my national championship pick. Now, they could still make the college football playoff and they could still win the Natty, but things are going to be a lot more difficult for Georgia moving forward. It looks like Carson Beck really isn't the answer. He had another terrible game and Georgia couldn't get anything going on the ground. Now, the crazy thing is, Jackson Dart didn't have one of his crazy games and that's why Ole Miss won. For the game, Jackson Dart only had 250 yards of total offense with 1 touchdown. Georgia got that quick touchdown to begin the game, but after that, it was honestly a mismatch considering Ole Miss outscored Georgia 28-3. Now, things are going to get very, very interesting in the SEC moving forward. I mean, let's just take a look at the conference standings as of right now. You have Tennessee and Texas A&M that are tied atop the leaderboard as they're 5-1 in conference play. Texas is right behind them as they're 4-1 in conference play, so they're still alive as well. Meanwhile, for Georgia, this loss likely takes them out unless a lot of good things go their way the rest of the year. For Ole Miss, they're still technically alive in the hunt as well, and having that tiebreaker over Georgia is pretty massive. Alabama is also 4-2 in conference play, but we're going to get to them a little later in this video. It's going to be interesting to see how many spots Georgia falls inside the top 12. Now, considering they were ranked as the number 3 team in the country, I don't see them falling outside the top 12 at all. I think that would be crazy, especially considering they did lose to the number 16 team, but for Georgia, they now have to win out the rest of the way if they want to be a playoff team. And when looking at their schedule, that might be kind of difficult because their next matchup comes at home against number 7 Tennessee. So just like that for Georgia, if they lose this weekend, they're likely going to be out of the playoff discussion. But like I did say last week, considering they are an SEC team, I'm not going to say it's a 100% foregone conclusion that if they lose 3 games, they'll be out. I'll give it like a 75% chance. I guess we can kind of stay on topic here with Ole Miss because this pretty much locks up their spot in the playoff, assuming they're able to win out. They only have 2 games remaining this season, on the road at Florida and at home against Mississippi State. If I were to guess, they're going to be pretty favored in both of those games, so I don't think Ole Miss is going to drop either. They are 4-2 in conference play, so they are technically still alive in the SEC title discussion. Their losses came to Kentucky and to LSU, so they're not going to lose the tiebreaker because neither one of those teams is probably going to be fighting for one of those 2 spots. I don't think the Rebels are going to be playing in the SEC title game, but like I said, I do think they're going to be able to sneak into that top 12 considering they're probably going to be ranked inside the top 12 after their victory against Georgia this weekend. So this was a pretty massive upset for the Rebels because this likely secured their playoff bid. Although Georgia losing was in my opinion the biggest upset, I think the most shocking upset of the weekend was Miami losing on the road to Georgia Tech. Now, the craziest thing about this loss was the fact that Georgia Tech didn't have a quarterback that could throw the ball. Haynes King was dealing with a shoulder injury and he only threw the ball 6 times. Meanwhile, backup quarterback Aaron Philo, he only threw the ball 10 times. For the game, Georgia Tech ran the ball 50 times. And despite knowing that they were only going to run, they still ran for 300 yards with 2 rushing scores. Cam Ward did all he could at the very end, but it just wasn't enough for Miami, and just like that, they have a loss, and their chances of reaching the college football playoff are a little shaky as of right now. When you look at the ACC standings, just like that, Miami is now 3rd in the ACC. SMU is still at the top as they're 5-0 in conference play, but Clemson is now 6-1 in conference play. Now, considering Miami and Clemson don't play this season, I'm not quite certain how the tiebreaker scenario is going to work, but Miami wasn't in the driver's seat like they once were. They finished their season playing Wake Forest and they're on the road at Syracuse. Now, those should be 2 games that they win, but with Miami, who knows? They've had a number of close games this year. It finally bit them this weekend, so there's a chance they could drop another game. I'm not sure how far Miami is going to fall when it comes to the college football playoff rankings, but if I were to guess, they're probably going to fall to maybe 8 or 9. So if that's the case, they probably can't afford a loss the rest of the way. Even if they make it to the ACC title game, unless there's a lot of chaos in front of them, I'm not quite certain that if Miami loses the ACC title game, they'll be able to still hang around inside the top 12. So this loss to Georgia Tech really could have a massive impact on Miami moving forward. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we had a number of upsets this weekend, but there were also a number of teams that were on upset watch as well. One of those teams being Indiana, who escaped with a 5-point victory over Michigan. Now this was a really interesting game because in the first half, Indiana dominated Michigan, but in the second half, Indiana's offense couldn't get anything going. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think in the second half, Indiana might have had like 40 or 50 total yards of offense. They let Michigan hang around in this game. And if Michigan just had a quarterback that was even remotely good, the Wolverines probably win this game. The issue is their quarterback Davis Warren is terrible. They really couldn't move the ball at all. They couldn't get anything going on the ground, so Michigan couldn't pull off the crazy upset. Luckily for Indiana, they were able to hang on as they're now 10-0 on the season. Not to mention, with a couple of teams losing in front of them, they're likely going to move up a couple of spots, and if they do lose to Ohio State in their next game, that's probably going to keep them inside the top 12, and it's still going to keep their playoff chances alive. The other team that was on upset watch was BYU, as they escaped the Holy War with a 1-point victory as they hit a game-winning field goal in the final seconds. Now, I didn't watch this game, but based on Twitter, there was a lot of controversy surrounding this game. I guess people are saying BYU shouldn't have won, Utah got screwed. Again, I'm not exactly certain what happened, but at the end of the day, a win's a win. BYU is still undefeated, and they're still alive in the playoff hunt as well. Now, the crazy thing is, BYU was actually trailing 21-10 at halftime, but they outscored Utah 12-0 the rest of the way. So even if Utah got screwed, you can't finish a game going scoreless over the final 32 minutes, so I think BYU did earn this win. Now for BYU, things are going to get really interesting over this final month. They're the only team that's still undefeated in conference play in the Big 12, but after a crazy weekend, a lot of teams are still alive to play in the Big 12 title game. They have 3 games remaining, 3 games they're expected to be favored in, but I wouldn't be shocked if they fall in 1 or 2 of these games. This game wasn't an upset. I guess technically it was, because Alabama was a 3-point underdog, but what a performance from the Tide. They took down LSU by 30 points, and this Alabama team, led by Jalen Milroe, they looked like a playoff-bound team. They looked like a top 4 to 5 team in college football. If we can get this Alabama team on a week-to-week basis moving forward, they could win it all. They can win the national championship. The only problem with Alabama is they've been so hot and cold. We don't know what team we're getting on a week-to-week basis, but this was Alabama's best game of the season, I think. I think this was better than their showing against Georgia about a month ago. Alabama, I mean, this was a team, if you didn't show me what their ranking was, I would have thought last night that this was the number 1 team in college football. That's how good they looked on offense, how good they looked on defense. Jalen Milroe, I know he's going to be in the Heisman discussion again, but this is one of the best games I've seen from a player this season. I mean, he had 300 yards of offense, 4 total touchdowns. LSU couldn't stop him at all. Alabama is a team to watch moving forward. Now, the crazy thing is, despite all of that, if Alabama drops just 1 more game the rest of the way, they could be potentially out of the playoff because that would be their 3rd loss. Looking at their schedule, they have Mercer, Oklahoma, and Auburn, so they shouldn't lose a game the rest of the way. But this is Alabama we're talking about. Even if they lose that 3rd game, I wouldn't put it past the playoff committee to kind of sneak them into the top 12 because that would be must-see television. For LSU, though, this is a brutal loss because I still had them alive in the college football playoff discussion. I thought with the win against Alabama, they'd slide into the top 12, and if they win out, they'd probably be a playoff team. Well, after this loss, sorry LSU, yeah, your chances are done this year. Now, this one was a little interesting later in the evening. I know Boise State won by 7. They were up by 14 in the 4th quarter, so this game was never really in jeopardy at any point. But they were playing a team that was 3-7, 0-4 in conference play, and they were letting Nevada kind of just hang around in this one. I mean, the game was tied at the half, and I'm thinking, is Boise State going to completely fall out of the playoff discussion by losing at home to Nevada? Now, obviously they didn't. They won by 7 points. It wasn't a pretty game. They're not going to be getting any cookie points from the playoff committee after this week. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Boise State were to drop a ranking or 2. Ashton Jeanty had another insane game. He ran for over 200 yards with 3 rushing scores. So, Boise State, you're still alive in the playoff discussion. But yeah, this This was a game you really want to erase from your memory. Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago, Iowa State looked like an all but guarantee to be playing in the Big 12 title game. Well, they've lost back-to-back games. They're now 7-2 on the season, 4-2 in conference play. They're probably going to be ranked in the low 20s in the next playoff rankings. So for Iowa State, it looks like your chances of reaching the college football playoff now, they're not shot completely, but they are really, really, really low. I don't think the Cyclones are going to be able to get inside the top 12 the rest of the season. Their schedule just isn't going to allow that to happen. Now, they are still technically alive, I think, in the Big 12 title discussions. They are 4-2 in conference play, but they are tied with Kansas State, Arizona State, and West Virginia, and they are behind Colorado and BYU, so they are going to have a lot of things go their way. But again, there is still that outside chance they can reach the Big 12 title game. They could win, and they could secure a spot in the playoff. But again, that's going to be their only chance now, because losing these 2 games in a row, that's absolutely brutal for the Cyclones. Yeah, speaking of the Big 12, all of a sudden now, Colorado, they're in the driver's seat to actually reach the Big 12 title game, and if they win that, they're going to be in the college football playoff. They took down Texas Tech, winning by 14 points. Colorado is now 7-2 on the season. They're 5-1 in conference play. The College Football Playoff Committee put them in number 20 this past week. If I were to guess, they're probably going to jump up to maybe 17 or maybe 16. So they're already going to be right on the door knocking of being a top 12 team. But the fact that now they are 5-1 in conference play, they're the number 2 team in the Big 12. Every other team behind them has 2 losses. If Colorado just wins out, they are going to be playing in the Big 12 title game with the chance to go to the college football playoff. Now for Colorado, I don't think they can afford to lose the Big 12 title game and still be a top 12 team. So for them, it's pretty simple. If they win their remaining schedule, Colorado and Deion Sanders, they're going to be playing in the college football playoff, which is absolutely insane. I know a lot of people, myself included, wrote them off at the beginning of the year. I knew that they would be better than they were last season. I didn't think they would win, 3 games again. I thought that they would be a fringe bowl team, probably win 6 games, maybe 7. But what they're doing this year, I'm blown away, so I got to tip my cap to them. I did not expect Colorado to be this good in 2024. And not only that, they're actually looking really good as well. Like, they're not just escaping with these close victories. They're looking really, really good. So again, shout out to Deion Sanders, because this is a legitimate playoff team this year. Well, that wraps it up for today's video. What were your thoughts on the crazy weekend of college football? Which loss was the most shocking to you? And which team pulling off the upset was the most surprising as well? What do you think the top 12 is going to look like? And what playoff teams do you think are going to fall out of the discussion after this weekend? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos all season long, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video and my channel with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.